In Conversation with Terry Shepard, award-winning broadcaster, narrator, and author. A deep dive into the writer's craft with the artists and support systems who create the stories we love.
Thanks, Lisa. DJ Green is a writer, geologist, and sailor, as well as a bookseller and a partner in Bookworks, an independent bookstore in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She lives near the Sandia Mountains in Placitas, New Mexico, and cruises the Salish Sea on her sailboat during the summers. No More Empty Spaces is her first novel, and she gives us the 411 on the story.
It's 1973, and Will Ross, a divorced American engineering geologist, is beyond bored with his desk job at the expansion of the Philadelphia port. And he has found a way to sign on the construction of a troubled dam in a remote and rugged part of Turkey. 2 weeks before he's supposed to leave, he discovers that his ex-wife is drinking excessively, and he decides to take his children, 15-year-old Kevin, 12-year-old Rob, and 4-year-old Dee Dee with him, only the children think they're going for their usual 2-week stint of shared custody, not to live there. So once the family gets to Turkey, Will finds himself struggling for control of his family, of the work, of the landscape the dam is going to be built on, and ultimately himself. And the story is told in 3 points of view: Will's, his son Kevin's, and the young American woman Paula, who teaches the English-speaking children at the dam site. But No More Empty Spaces isn't just the story of the Ross family, it's also the story of a landscape. And I hope that the Turkish landscape where this dam is going to be built will live as much like a character for readers as the characters who wander it.
Why 1973 and why Turkey?
Well, this is actually very, very loosely based on a family story. And Will is very, very loosely based on my late husband. And he was the chief foundation geologist for a difficult dam in Turkey. And he did take his children with him there. And that's pretty much where the facts end. So this is fiction, but it just felt like a really engaging, it's an amazing place. Turkey is a fascinating place historically, culturally, geographically, and of course, from my point of view, geologically. And setting an adventure there is really exciting. And in the 70s is a time when Americans and Brits were pretty much working all over the world developing large projects like dams and bridges and electrical systems for whole countries sometimes.
You are a Renaissance woman. You are a geologist. You sail. You sell books. How did you become a writer?
I've always enjoyed writing, starting from writing really terrible poetry as a kid. And as I lived into my career as a geologist and started having more adventures in different states and different countries, I just really wanted to be able to translate the things that I find fascinating for other people. And so I started writing, and then I became really fascinated with the process of writing. And you know, how does someone create a world that we can lose ourselves in for days at a time that feels more real than the world around us? How does someone make you laugh or make you cry? And it's just a fascinating process.
DJ Green is our guest. Her website is geologistwriter.com. No More Empty Spaces does not read like a debut novel. It feels very much like the fourth or fifth go-round for a very seasoned author. How did you learn the craft?
I worked really hard at it. I believe that you become what you practice, and I practiced really hard at writing well. And it's funny that you say it's like the fourth or fifth novel, and I guess I would say it's my first novel, but I rewrote it 4 or 5 times. So maybe it is my fifth novel.
And you did such a great job with your characters. The generational voices between your protagonist and offspring are very unique. but also felt very authentic. How did you channel that?
I had some help in that department. I have never been a teenage boy, and but I did some writing with coaches and in workshops, and writers who were parents of teenage boys would give me input about if something sounded a little too nice, and to work on making those voices sound more authentic.
How did you convince somebody to believe in this story and actually take it from draft to publication?
I think you know how long a journey that is. And I think that I have some talents and some traits, one of which is persistence. And I think that persistence is really important for a writer. I felt I had to tell this story, and I worked hard to tell it well. And very shortly after starting to query literary agents, I landed a wonderful literary agent, and people said to me, "Oh, that happened so fast." And the truth is, it didn't happen fast at all. I wrote and rewrote and rewrote and rewrote so that the book was ready, and it just felt like it happened fast. What's the old saying about after how many years you become an overnight success, right? But she believed in it. She shopped the book a lot to traditional publishers, and we were getting very, very complimentary rejections. And it's because people didn't seem to know where the book fit in the marketplace. And that's how I ended up with She Writes Press, because their model is if the writing is solid, the story is solid, they will publish it. And it's kind of my job and my publicist's job to find the market for it. And I believe in the book, and I think we will.
That's kind of the evolution of publishing in general. The big houses don't have the budgets anymore to do that kind of stuff. They're looking for series that they can clone, and then they can pass off to Netflix and Amazon Prime. But yours is very unique, a very eclectic story, engaging. Where do you think you'll find your audience?
Well, I think that for one thing, the geological community will be interested in it, because how many books are out there with an engineering geologist as the hero? But I think there's a lot bigger market than that. I think it's a family story, and we all have families, and they all have drama. And that's a really rich vein to mind, pardon me, wrong, switched my metaphors there. And I think that, every one of the characters, I think, is trying to define what home means to them. And I think that's a pretty universal theme that I hope will resonate with readers. I think there are readers who love to read about stories in different countries, to learn about other places. And there's lots of adventures that the Ross family has. And of course, as a geologist who worked in the environmental and engineering geology field for 30 plus years, I really hope to translate the wonder I feel for the earth and the geologic processes that shape it for non-scientific readers, and that, when they close the book, they'll understand a little bit more of the landscape around them than they did before they opened the book.
DJ Green is our guest. No More Empty Spaces is her debut. Learn more about her at geologistwriter.com. What was your attraction to the geological profession in the first place?
I came to it very naturally. I'm kind of a chip off the old rock. My dad was an earth science teacher, and we grew up camping and hiking, and we didn't have pictures of the kids. We had stand in front of that outcrop for scale pictures. So I grew up listening to why things looked the way they did in the landscape. And my very first semester in college, I took Geology 101 and had an amazing professor who I totally fell in love with it. And I never looked back. And I've never been sorry. It was a fascinating career.
Teachers can make or break a lot of great dreams for us. And you obviously had some amazing teachers in the geological world. Who are some of your inspirations as a writer?
Oh, as a writer, my inspirations are the writers who get me so involved with a character that I can't put the book down. I may not love the character. I may not even like the character. I may, want to yell at them for the things they're doing or saying, but I'm so engaged with them that I can't put the book down. And some of those people are Richard Russo, the voice of my favorite book of his is Straight Man, and the voice of that narrator is so distinctive and wonderful. Gabrielle Zevin, my favorite of hers, I'm probably naming some different favorites, was The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry, and as a bookseller, that might be why I love that book so much. But the protagonist in that novel was so true and so troubled, but so real and lovable in his own way. And let's see, Barbara Kingsolver, Prodigal Summer is, so many of her books, but my favorite of hers is Prodigal Summer. And aren't we lucky as writers that we can learn from teachers that we'll never meet by reading their books and learning from what they've done so well on the page.
You are a partner in a bookstore, too. Bookworks, Rio Grande at Dietz in beautiful Albuquerque, New Mexico. How did you get involved with that part of the business?
As I started easing back on my geological consulting, and I thought I was close to finishing the book at that point, and I wanted to learn the book business from the front lines. So I wrote what I thought was a really nice piece of creative writing about why they should hire a geologist with no retail experience. And lo and behold, they did. And so I've been there for 10 years now. And after the pandemic, the previous owners were just exhausted with the whole experience of keeping a store alive through the pandemic. And a mother and a daughter are the two managing partners now. And a group of 14 of us from the community, including myself, came together and invested in the bookstore. And it just feels wonderful because it really is a community project. And local independent bookstores are really important for communities. So we're pretty excited about Bookworks turning 40 this year, and we're looking forward to the next 40.
How did your involvement with Bookworks impact No More Empty Spaces?
It gave me a real education about the ins and outs of the book business, from behind the counter at the bookstore to publishers and how things are wholesale, how things are done wholesale, distributors, et cetera, et cetera. And it was really an education for me, and I think very helpful for me as with respect to the business of being an author to understand what the front lines of the book business is like.
Author DJ Green is our guest on the program. Her website is geologistwriter.com, and we're talking about her debut novel, No More Empty Spaces. If you were approaching an independent bookseller to talk about No More Empty Spaces, what would your pitch be about why they should carry it in their inventory?
Oh, that's a good question. I've been doing that. I should have an easy answer for that. But I think what I would say is that this is a general fiction. It leans literary, but it should appeal to a wide range of readers. It's not so much a pigeonholed kind of book, but it has a lot of different aspects to it. And I know you're a mystery writer, and even though it's not a mystery, as a geologist, every geologic project we do is kind of a mystery, because you can be doing physically the same thing. You can be mapping the surface. You can be digging trenches and logging trench walls. You can be drilling holes and logging boreholes and drawing cross sections. But even if you're physically doing the same thing, every geologic problem is its own unique mystery. So it might even appeal to mystery readers.
My first reaction after finishing No More Empty Spaces was I was hungry for more. Does this book have a sequel?
As much as I love the characters and would love to spend more time with them, it doesn't right now. I can picture perhaps a prequel where Will is a boy and the adventures he goes through and the trials he goes through to become the man that he is in No More Empty Spaces. But actually, the book I'm working on now, its working title is Chances, and I elected to, rather than focus on Will, I'm focusing on the woman captain of a sailboat.
That feels somewhat autobiographical.
Well, certainly, I know how it feels to be at the helm of a sailboat, and I guess I would say my very short pitch for Chances is that it's the story of a woman taking the helm of her life as she learns to command the helm of her sailboat. So yes, perhaps there are some autobiographical parts in it, but again, I just love fiction, and I love being able to well, I am a sailor. Maybe I just like a good yarn. And I think that in fiction, we get to explore truer truths than if we're just tied to facts.
What feedback have you received on No More Empty Spaces?
A couple of people have touched on even just small scenes that really impacted them. For instance, there's one scene where Paula is teaching a lesson about the history of Turkey, and she talks about kind of the evolution of civilizations in the middle part of Anatolia, which is where this is happening. And she says something about civilizations dying out, and she talks about why that happened. And I'm not going to give that all away. I hope people will dig into the story and find that out for themselves. But I know one reader said, I know this wasn't the focus of the whole book, but reading that and understanding that was like a gut punch to me with respect to some of the things that we're going through with respect to climate change and what can happen so fast in human history and how that impacts us. And certainly that's something I felt wonderful that she'd gotten that from the book, because I really want to talk about that message of, how do we define progress? And is all progress as positive as we'd like to think it is? And what are the consequences of what we call progress? And how humans interact with the earth, and how the earth impacts us and how we impact the earth.
Why do you write?
I think I have to. I have to. There are stories inside that I have to tell, and for me, that's the way I explore what's going on in my very busy head, is to get it out on paper and try and make sense of it.
How can readers get in touch with you?
My website, it's www.geologistwriter.com. You can learn more about my writing there, and you can see little bits of my creative nonfiction there and some excerpts from the novel. And I'd love to hear what people think.
DJ Green is a geologist, a sailor, an author, and a bookseller. Her debut novel is No More Empty Spaces, and you can get it wherever cool books are sold. Thanks, DJ, for keeping the independent bookseller spirit alive in my old New Mexico hometown.
Oh, thank you so much. Hey, come by Bookworks next time you're in Albuquerque.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.